G'day, my name's Anthony Peterson. I'm here today with my good friends Serge and Siobhan, and they work with A21. And thanks to Zoom, we're also going to be chatting with Jessica Mass from Operation Underground Railroad, and also Ben and Rachel King from Vos Tanbian. Is that how you pronounce it? Vos Tanbian. Is that a French? Is that that's a Latin or French?
Spanish.
Spanish. There you go.
Yeah. They'll be able to,
wasn't remotely
they'll be able
close.
to explain it.
All right, so Jessica, can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, well, it's wonderful to be here with everyone across multiple continents and in quarantine. So it's great to be here. And my name's Jessica. I'm the director of Aftercare for Operation Underground Railroad. And I've had the privilege of meeting everybody else in person while we were in South America.
And you're currently in Utah, is that right? In the States?
Yes, I'm in Utah. You have the beautiful mountains in the background, if you can see them. And so we're just enjoying the sunny, beautiful day here.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's kick things off. How does Operation Underground Railroad, as a non-profit support rescue operations, how does it work? That's basically what we're after, right? Tell me about it, because frankly, up until a day ago, I knew nothing about you guys.
That's a great question. I think a lot of times people wonder, how does a nonprofit and government agencies work together? And what we have found was that when that collaboration can happen, more children can be rescued and more aftercare can happen. And so our founder, Tim Ballard, used to work for Homeland Security, and several other of our operators worked for different government agencies such as the FBI, CIA, or law enforcement. And so when we formed our nonprofit, we had that background coming into it. So they had a lot of different relationships around the world with different governments and law enforcement. And so we partner with different governments and law enforcements in order to help support them in things that they ask for, things that they need. And I think that that's one of the keys, though, is we never do any type of an operation without government approval, support. We're not the ones who arrest people or even attempt to do anything like that. We work hand in hand and by invitation of the country.
Okay, so you collaborate with the local authorities, but you guys do actual rescues. We're talking like covert ninja commando style rescues. Is that right? Or am I just imagining this?
We do undercover investigations. So we partner with the local law enforcement. And a lot of times what happens is there needs to be a foreigner and sometimes Americans, because of our known reputation for buying and selling children for sex purposes. And so some of our guys will be able to go in and do undercover work as the buyers of these children. And because of that, we're able to gather a lot of information and turn that over to the authorities. And then also when authorities ask us to be a part of any type of the sting operation, usually it's the aftercare side that's there on site when that's happening. And we partner with local social workers to be able to be with the children once the rescue is happening. So the law enforcement arrests the bad guys, and then the children are immediately taken to start the aftercare process.
Wow. So what does Aftercare do before and after a mission? What does that look like?
Yes, there's a lot of pre-work that I think people don't know about. So before a rescue operation happens, we find in-country partners to be able to collaborate with. And we work in 26 different countries, and so each country looks a little different, but we find aftercare homes that are already established, that are they understand the culture, the language, they understand the specific needs of the children in that area. For example, Peru is vastly different than Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia is so different than Africa. So those different cultural things, we want to make sure that we're not missing any of those as well. And so we find in-country aftercare homes that we collaborate with, and after building a relationship and a trusted partnership, we ask how can we help improve the quality of care. So it's ones that we are vetting and they already have amazing care, and then we say how can we help improve the quality of care. Sometimes that's education, vocational training, providing for medical services, mental health therapy. So whatever the lagging pieces that they need more resources or training or different things like that, that's where we are able to really collaborate with in-country partners.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but guys, that would be potentially A21 as collaborating?
And also guys like Ben and Rachel who are running an aftercare program there in Argentina. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
So in South America, under A21, we're focusing at the moment more on the education and awareness side of things.
Right.
But obviously in some of the other countries, I believe in Southeast Asia, that there are links with A21 and OUR, if I'm not wrong, with the aftercare there.
Okay. So why, I mean, this may be an obvious question, but why is it important for NGOs to cooperate in this aftercare process?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think sometimes NGOs get a reputation, and if you've worked in an NGO, sometimes you've experienced not working together, and that NGOs talk negatively about each other, or they are competing for different donors, or there is some of those things that can happen. And I think that what happens is, if that becomes the focus on our differences versus how are we able to support each other, how can we collaborate, because first of all, the world will know his love by our love for one another. And so it's so important for us to care about each other and build each other up and love each other, even if we do have some differences. But I think even more so is because the mission is for these children and adults that have been trafficked. And when that stays the focus, is how can we support them? And when NGOs and nonprofits can truly love each other, like the 4 other people that we're talking with now, I just adore them. Their support, their encouragement, they build me up personally and help me continue to do aftercare even in other countries on days when I feel discouraged. So I think if we keep the mission of serving and loving victims and survivors of human trafficking, and then also when we can encourage and love each other, mountains can be moved. And so I think that is one of the primary reasons why it's so important for us all to work together.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a good segue to introduce Ben and Rachel King from Vos Tambien, and I probably pronounced it incorrectly, forgive me. So just, guys, introduce yourself quickly and tell us a little bit, what is Vos Tambien?
So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting us, and awesome to see Jessica and Serge and Siobhan again. Fantastic to see everybody again from across multiple ponds this time. Yeah. And we're calling today from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
So Vos Tambien is a nonprofit Christian faith-based. We started 7 years ago now. Mm-hmm. My sister-in-law Jessica Koss had been studying human trafficking, and I had felt missions. And in one church service, God to us this topic of trafficking. And my husband Ben had been looking at Latin America and started studying trafficking patterns, and we created Vos Tambien. So our mission is to end human trafficking in the Rio de la Plata region of South America, which is Argentina, Uruguay, and also parts of Paraguay and Brazil. And so our main focus is providing aftercare for victims.
So when we're talking about putting end to human trafficking, hopefully one day that will happen, although the more I learn about it, the more I realize how big the problem is. It's crazy. I had no idea. What is the importance of education and awareness in putting an end to human trafficking?
absolutely critical. Now, first, you had mentioned the putting an end to human trafficking and that seeming like sort of a daunting task. And what we found is most organizations, NGOs, really any kind of organization, will never go past your vision. And so, yes, you're right. That is an unbelievable, unachievable in this realm vision. However, if we don't have a vision like that, then we stop wherever we put the limits. So, yeah, that's why it's sort of broad. Yeah. And as far as education and its importance, the illustration that my sister always uses is if you're going to empty out a bucket with a spigot running into it, the first thing you need to do is shut off the water. So here, at least in Argentina, one of the ways that that people are abducted, it's people like to think of the guys in a white van situation where, you know, people come up with ski masks on and rob you out of parking lots. And I don't want to say that that doesn't happen. That just isn't the majority of the situations that we have here. The majority of the situations we have here come from young girls who are in poor regions of Argentina, and somebody comes along and offers them a job or offers them some sort of lucrative reason to move to the capital, why we're here in Buenos Aires. And that all can be prevented 100% with just educating people, educating fans and girls and boys alike on what that looks like. Because really, let's be honest, that at least from what we see here, the methods are not clever and they're not diverse. It tends to be a pretty limited scope of methods.
So it sounds to me like
another major part of education is shutting down the demand. So major part of education is shutting down the demand. The way you can do that is by teaching boys to respect these girls and not treat women as objects. You've got to start training boys from a very young age to respect other people and respect women and respect themselves. And so a lot of what we've been talking about with A21 is starting the education in the schools, going into schools and teaching the children that respecting themselves and respecting others is very important.
So how does it look like? How you mentioned you're going to schools. How else do you educate people in South America?
So our focus right now is aftercare facilities, so that we have spaces for people to come into, like Jessica was talking about, after the rescue's been made. And so what we're actually personally more involved in is the education of the people who have already been trafficked and who have already been rescued out of that. So really, honestly, A21 has far more experience in the going into schools and doing that sort of thing.
So you guys are more into the whole restoration process, which I imagine would be huge in itself. You're dealing with very broken people who need to chart a new path in life. So what are the sort of common scenarios that you would have to deal with that?
The girls we've worked with there's such a range, and they're such beautiful people, but hurting people lash out. So frequently it's just teaching them to be angry, not get upset about things. We have to work with a lot of them. We had one girl who she'd been living in her life with no running water, no kitchen. So with her, we had to teach her basic stuff like how to wash herself, how to wash her children. Cleaning bottles every day is a necessity. Things that you don't think are a big deal to some of these girls, you know, they've got no experience in that. Other girls we've had were just, you know, they've got such great gifts, and it's teaching them to pull those things out of themselves. They tend to focus on one thing, like all I was ever good at was prostitution, because that's the only thing I did. And having to like dig into their lives and find the little gifts that they're good at. We had one girl who she'd get really angry at us and yell and scream at us, and then you come into the kitchen 2 hours later and she's baking cookies. She'd never, ever, ever ask for forgiveness for anything, but she'll bake us cookies. And so you just have to, I think the biggest thing that we deal with is teaching people to never get offended. Because the minute you put up a wall between you and the person you're trying to help, and they're going to push that wall every single day. So learning to just never be offended at anything they say or do, recognize that they're not angry at me, they're angry at the situation, they're angry at the world, and helping them learn to work through that and resolve that conflict inside of themselves.
And really everything comes down to, it can all be summed up in identity. Really, that's the basis of what we do, is we teach people their identity, who they are, because all of these people come with an incorrect and broken identity, and that needs to be changed. So.
And Ben, hey, I've got a question for you, Ben. Like, obviously, you know, you guys are out there doing what I think is what very few people can do, and a lot of people that, you know, maybe watch the problem and watch this issue from afar think, you know, it's too, like Anthony mentioned, it's too big. You know, I from a practical sense, what do you think? Like, just the person who's at home watching this podcast right now, what's a practical way that they can get involved? You know, without having to take obviously the steps that, you know, even yourself, Jess, as well, going to the extremes of going out there and, you know, putting their gloves on and physically, you know, tackling the issue. What can someone at home, how can they practically get involved in supporting and getting involved in being a part of the solution for this problematic?
So there's one answer that the first answer I'm going to give you, a lot of people aren't going to like, and I'm prepared for that. And the second one is a bit more practical, but the first one is the most important, and it's prayer. We are absolutely a Christian organization, and we do believe that prayer is not a last resort sort of thing. It's the first thing that we need to be doing in everything, and it really does make a difference. So that honestly is the first thing we always ask for, because we need it, and it's really critical to what we do. Now, the second thing that people can do, I think we ran into something interesting when we started 7 years ago. The number one question we got was, oh yeah, I guess that's still happening down there in Argentina, because people in the States didn't have any, 7 years ago, we didn't have any collective consciousness of trafficking. And now, since then, it's sort of exploded, and everybody, or rather, it's far more visible now, and there's more of a understanding that it's happening everywhere. Now, when we go back to the US, the number one question we get is, oh, why are you there instead of here? Did you know it's happening in the States? We hear that all the time. And so I think one of the things that people can do is get a hold of one of the organizations where you live, and usually there are very specific and pretty common common themes that go along with the culture of trafficking in a certain area, and most organizations would be more than happy to fill you in on what to look for, the things that you can have your eye out for as you're going around your town, and things that you can see, and also what to do if somebody approaches you and says, hey, I'm being trafficked or something. Because there's something that all of us are doing where you are. So it's necessary that you go across the world to do this. We did, but that's usual.
Okay. And Jess, can I throw that same question at you, Jess, and just from a practical point of view, what's your opinion on how people can get involved in what you guys do as an organisation? How can they get behind you guys, and what can people do at a practical level to get involved?
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that people can do is become educated, and there's many different ways to do that. We have a free online course. It takes about an hour and walks you through what human trafficking is, what to look for, the signs, everything from A to Z kind of in an hour. So we're all at home right now, and so we have access to internet, and a free training is available on our website at OURrescue.org. I think another thing is parents, talk to your children. We think sometimes that our kids are safe because they're in their house, and we just had a case last week of an 11-year-old girl in the United States who was on TikTok, and she was showing everybody her day from start to finish, and she had people watching as she was also taking a shower, because she just didn't connect that there would be people that were going to be watching her taking a shower. But to her, it just seemed innocent. And when we were talking to her, it was like, I didn't even think about it. So an 11-year-old girl was then contacted by a man asking her to send explicit sexual pictures. And so it's little things like that. If we talk to our children, if we are comfortable with having those conversations as adults, and we know how to walk our kids through that, we literally can keep our children safe from getting trafficked. There's a 15-year-old girl that I was working with recently that was trafficked she was contacted by somebody on Instagram and told to come down to California, and there was a modeling agency that was going to sign her and do all these things with her, and she went down there and was forced, filmed, and raped, and then those films were sold internationally. And it does not take long for somebody to sell a video or a picture across multiple continents and countries within, the matter of 24 hours. And to try and get those images taken off and those videos taken off is very, very difficult. And so I say that because I want parents just to know that even in your own home, like Ben said, you do not have to be kidnapped. There's not a white van pulling up in front of your house necessarily and kidnapping your child and taking them into trafficking. Yes, that does happen, but it can also be a child that has access to a smartphone, which is the majority of our world. Not the United States, not just developed countries that are still developing as well. And so having those conversations is so important. And then you can also sign up on our website to be a volunteer, which we say to all of our volunteers, they always have their own resources that they bring to the table. And the things that they bring to the table are their skills, their talents. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a teacher, a social worker, a stay-at-home mom that knows how to do different craft projects. Everybody brings something to the table, and knowing that you have specific talents that you can help be a part of the solution. And I also love what they said about just training your boys. Boys are a part of the solution, and men are a part of the solution. And when you teach your boys that you can respond to a female that's beautiful with respect and not objectify her, you are literally helping stop human trafficking. The connections, we could walk through them all, but training your boys, educating your children, and taking an hour-long training can make a huge difference.
That's great.
So, just to Ben and Rachel, is there anything particular about Argentina? Like, why are you operating there? Is that a particularly bad hotspot for human trafficking, or what's the reason?
So it absolutely is a hot spot. However, I would argue probably in the grand scope of things, probably not any more than any other major city of this size. The real is not the gravity of the problem here as much as the lack of resources that they have here. Argentina did achieve Tier 1 status, which means internationally it's recognized as a country that's working to fight against human trafficking 2 years ago. However, it also it's been recognized in these reports that there is still a major lack of specific anti-trafficking long-term care centers, facilities, and which is exactly what we're here to do. And as a matter of fact, the center that we helped, we actually started the center with 2 other organizations here, local organizations. And that was the first Christian aftercare center specific to abuse victims that there was in this country. And so really, as we said, issue really is not as much that this is a particularly special country. Really, I think we're all becoming aware that trafficking is happening all over the world. The real issue is, where is there a lack of resources? And Argentina right now has a severe lack of resources for specifically long care facilities.
So something as in Argentina, all of our teams have been working as volunteer teams underneath the branch of A21. And something that we truly believe is that through education and awareness, we can help to see the statistics change, and we can reach the vulnerable, slowing down the demand before it reaches the point where people are being trafficked. So the importance behind that is, like others have touched on, it's about not just getting to the vulnerable, so I think it was Ben that touched on the fact that in Argentina, a lot of people from poorer communities, so in provinces that are far from the capital, are being promised work, are being promised a better lifestyle, and what they're being offered, it sounds like something great and amazing, but unfortunately what's happening behind these is that they're coming to the cities and they're being put into these situations where they're being forced against their will. So it's about getting into those areas and actually educating people on being aware of these situations happening. Now that starts from the next generation. It starts from the youngest ones, so getting into schools and implementing programs. It's also, I remember when I first arrived in Argentina, I had a conversation with an elderly lady, and she was asking me, why did you come to Argentina? What are you doing here? And after a couple of conversations, I had built a little bit of rapport with her, so I shared a little bit around of what I was doing there. And I remember her saying, but that doesn't happen here. And so it's not just about reaching the next generation, it's about reaching the entire community, because without the entire community making a stand and saying that this should not be happening in our cities, in our countries, then we're never going to see a change. So with that, there's a lot of different programs that we've been working on implementing to be reaching multiple generational facets.
So what about areas where these, you're not currently ministering? What are your plans in terms of reaching those areas?
Yeah, perfect. So I guess you could say as the volunteer teams for A21 in Argentina, we're in a current growth stage. Yeah. So we've got 8 teams working around the country. The numbers just slipped me, but I believe there's 23 or 24 provinces in Argentina. So our goal, first of all, is to using the methods that we're currently using, connecting with other NGOs, connecting with government organisations, and also through our social media and the awareness campaigns that we do, is actually, first of all, getting the word out to the rest of the country of what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve through the awareness side of things, and believing that through that we're going to see individuals and groups actually taking a stand as well and raising teams in the cities where they are, and believing that once that we have a team working within each province, then they'll be able to strategically get out to those areas where they are the most vulnerable. An example is through an awareness campaign that A21 does each year, which is the Walk for Freedom. As I said, the power of social media at the moment can be used for, unfortunately, the bad that Jess was talking about with children being vulnerable on it, but also with what we're doing through the awareness. We're actually seeing that people are finding ways that they can get involved and that they can help to see human trafficking ended. And with that, for example, we had a destination area in Argentina is up at what we call the tri-borders. So it's where Argentina, Brazil and Paraguay all meet. And we've had 2 teams over the past couple of months, 2 individuals put their hand up to say that they want to be implementing this Walk for Freedom at the end of this year. which for me, that's literally right in the hotspot of where everything's being sourced from in Argentina. So if we can see more of that happening around the country, also talking with government officials that we've been able to make contact with there, it's not just us that are seeing it, but the government as well, that when all the provinces are working together, that's when we can truly see change. That's when we'll see the laws that are in place actually being implemented at a stronger level as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, time's got away from us. Thank you so much, Surgeon Siobhan and Jessica and Ben and Rachel. You guys are like angels in what you do. Like, seriously, it's amazing. It's amazing. I wish you were really well and pray God's richest blessing on you and your ministry and what you do, and for more workers, and I'm sure you need more money as well. So God bless you guys. It's been lovely chatting with you today.
We'll see. It's an honor. Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you so much for turning up today. Really appreciate you all. Thank you.
It's been great. Let's keep working together.